I'm Andrea Giles, and you're listening to the Heal from Infidelity podcast, episode number 24, Post-Traumatic Growth with Krista St-Germain. Hello, and welcome to the Heal from Infidelity podcast, where courageous women learn not only to heal from their spouse's betrayal, but to become the boldest, truest, most decisive, and confident versions of themselves ever. If you know there's more for you than the life you're currently living, but don't quite know how to get there, you are in the right place. Stick around to learn how to create a life that will knock your own socks off. Is it possible? It is, and I'm here to show you how. I'm your host, Andrea Giles. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. I'm going to keep this intro super brief because I want to go ahead and dive right into the guest that I'm bringing on today. It's the first guest I've had on the show, and I think you're going to love her. Krista St-Germain. She's a master certified coach. She's going to tell you about her experience and why she became a coach, and I think that you'll love her and learn a lot from her. So without further ado, I bring you Krista St-Germain. Hey, everybody. I'm so glad to be here with you today. Today, I have something so exciting. I have my very first guest to the podcast, and I've put a lot of thought into who I want to be my very first guest, and I picked somebody that I think you guys are going to love. She has been an example to me, even though she didn't know it. I've been watching her since I first met her. I met her my very first night of coach training, and I was so nervous. I was so nervous to go to coach training and put myself out there. And I went to an event where we got to kind of meet each other before the training started. And I went and talked to her. She was one of the instructors there. And she was so kind and just has a bright light about her that I was drawn to. And it turns out we have a lot of overlap in the things that we work with. So her name is Krista St-Germain. She is a certified life coach, and she has a lot of experience with some of the things that you are dealing with, my listeners. And I thought it would be good to bring her on and let her tell you a little bit about who she works with and her journey to getting to where she is. So she went through her own really, really hard period of time. And I'm going to let her talk to you about it and about who she coaches. And we're going to have a discussion about that. So go ahead, Krista, and give us an introduction to who you are, your story, how you came to be a coach, and what you do. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to take a second to tell you thank you for having me on. I'm honored that I'm your first podcast guest, and even more honored to hear that, I guess I really didn't know that I had made that much of a difference for you. So that makes my heart happy. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So I'm a master certified life coach. I specialize in grief. Never in a million years before having my own grief experience did I really ever expect that I would be doing this work, but it's now kind of what lights me on fire, right? And so how I came here, right? How far down the rabbit hole do we go? So I had been just kind of at that point in my mid-30s where all circumstances pointed toward should be happy, but I didn't feel as happy as I thought I was supposed to be. And I couldn't really figure out why. 2 kids, job, stable, marriage, all of that. But I wasn't loving my life. And so I've been into self-help and those kinds of topics since I was a teenager. I started looking for resources, and I stumbled onto a podcast about life coaching, and it was Brooke Castillo's The Life Coach School podcast. That was a number of years ago, back when it was very, very early. And fast forward a couple of years, I got a divorce and I got remarried. The divorce was not lovely, right?
Yeah.
It was not really something ultimately I chose it, but I didn't really want it. It was pretty painful. It was agonizing for me to actually decide whether to get a divorce. I know that's something that a lot of your listeners struggle with too. It was like slowly, painfully ripping off the Band-Aid for a long, long time. Turned out to be a very good decision. But anyway, got remarried to someone who I considered to be just the perfect human, the man of my dreams, right? Like if there was ever a redemption story in marriage, he was it. He was just amazing. French Canadian, lovely accent, smart. He was an engineer. He was just like kind of a Renaissance man. He just took such great care of me. And it was a marked difference from, my first marriage. So fast forward a little bit more, and we're coming home from a vacation trip. It was a volunteer project that we had worked on together, something I've been doing for, now 20 years. And he was there. We had driven separately. And so on the way home, I had a flat tire and I pulled over on the side of the interstate, and he pulled over behind me, and being like the kind of, masculine, I can take care of it, guy that he was, he did not want to call AAA and wanted to change the tire himself. I did not insist that he called AAA. And as he was trying to get the tire out of my car, a driver who we later found out had meth and alcohol in his system, he didn't hit the brakes at all. All I heard was, metal, honestly, hit the back of Hugo's Durango and trapped him in between his car and my car. And, within 24 hours, he's gone. And so totally unexpected. What do you do? Mm-hmm. Right? Where do you go with that? Yep. And in my mind, of course, there were many things I had to work through, but one of the biggest was this idea that I was never really going to be truly happy again, that I had missed my shot. Yep. And I didn't really even want to say it out loud. Everyone around me is saying, "Oh, you're so strong. He's in a better place." He would have probably had he survived, he would have probably been a double amputee, at least a single, but probably a double. And so I kept hearing things like, he wouldn't have wanted that, and that would have been too hard for him. So it's better this way. And all of those well-meaning things that people try to say to make you feel better, but that really don't help you at all. And actually kind of invalidate how you're actually feeling. Mm-hmm. So I went back to therapy and kind of got to that place where I was able to function again. And I told the story enough times that I had kind of processed it, but still in that place where I really did not feel optimistic about the future. I couldn't visualize it. Everything I thought I wanted was us, right? It was him. That was what was on my mind. We worked together in the same company. That was just what I wanted, was that marriage. And so, yes, the kids were getting fed, and yes, I was back at work, and yes, people were telling me I was strong, and the to-do list was happening, and I was going through the motions. I was surviving, but I was really thinking, okay, the best I can hope for is to get used to this new normal. Yep. And I really hate that term now because of how misused I think it is. Yes, after a loss or a big change in life, there will be a different normal, but it doesn't have to be a normal that is worse than the normal that we had before. It can actually be a normal that is better than the normal we had before. We get to choose what kind of normal we want. But in my mind, it was resignation. It was, I have to get used to this normal I really don't want, but it's the best I can hope for. So suck it up. Right. Yep. But then I also had this other little part of me that just thought, surely that's not all that's possible. Like, surely there's something more. And so I started reading, and I learned about post-traumatic growth. And that was at exactly the same time when the coach I had been following, Brooke Castillo, launched a program that was actually, I felt, perfectly timed for me. Before that, she had just done high ticket weight loss, which wasn't what I needed, but she launched something. So I enrolled, and coaching became, it really just changed the entire trajectory of my life. Therapy had helped me get to that point of functioning, but coaching was what helped me figure out, no, actually, I don't have to settle for this resigned, less than new normal. I actually can create whatever I want in life. I can actually use the loss if I want to, not because I have to, but if I want to, I can use the loss to really redefine myself and what I want out of life and go forward and love it even more if I want. Become more of who I want to be. And so that's what happened. I had an amazing experience personally. And then kind of once I did the bulk of my own work, I decided this is just too magical not to help other people with. And I think that's how a lot of us get into this work, is we have some personal transformation story ourselves. And then we decide, I got to share this with the world. And that's what happened to me. So that's what I do now, is primarily I work with widowed moms, and I help them figure out how to get past whatever's in their way and really, truly love life again, not just settle for the new normal.
Oh, I love it. Do you remember when you had like the moment of what if there's more? Like when you really started to let it sink in that it could get really, really good. Do you remember that?
I remember that fall, just kind of going through the motions. And I don't know that it really was a light bulb moment, but it was just kind of thinking, wow, okay, I think there must be something else, because this is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. This is not the type of life that I want to have. I don't want to just survive. Other people are doing this. They're thriving. So then it must be possible for me. And so I don't know that it was one particular moment as much as it was probably just little moments here and there. Little glimmers.
Little lights that caught you. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. I love that. So like Krista said, she works with widowed moms around grief and post-traumatic growth. And first I want to touch on grief. Okay. So like you, I had well-meaning people telling me what they thought I should feel or not feel. And like, you're maybe not doing it right. Like those kinds of suggestions and words. And so it's interesting because we can get into a spot where we feel something and then kind of deny our own feelings or make ourselves wrong for feeling it, right? Like, shouldn't I be here instead of here? Shouldn't I? And would you speak to that? I'd love to hear what you've learned with all the people you've talked to, with your own experience. What's your take on that, about feeling what you're feeling when you're feeling it?
Yes. If I could impart one lesson to all of my clients and probably all of your listeners, that would be a great lesson, right? Feel what you're feeling when you're feeling it, and don't judge yourself for it. Anything you've learned about grief, you should probably just throw out the window, frankly. Yeah. We live in a culture that does not like grief, does not understand grief, and promotes a lot of misinformation about grief. So timelines are not relevant. Stages are not relevant. There is no such thing as feelings you should have or shouldn't have, thoughts you should or shouldn't have. It's completely unique and individual. And that's how we want to approach it is, yes, other people, they don't like us to feel negative emotions because they don't not know how to act.
Yes.
When we feel bad, they think that it's contagious or it makes them feel bad. They don't understand, right, how to let us feel how we feel without trying to come in and fix. And so they have the best of intentions. But what we need to understand is that feelings aren't right or wrong or good or bad. They are not problems. Feelings are not problems. How you feel is worth feeling all the way through. All the way through. Process it. We don't need to avoid it. We don't need to resist it. It's not useful to judge it. What's most useful is to acknowledge it, feel it, and move forward.
Beautiful. You know, what's interesting about my podcast is that my most listened to episode it's called Feeling Your Feelings. And it's listened to way more than the other ones, which tells me something about what we don't know in our society. Like, we've not been given permission to feel. And so it can be so empowering to learn that actually, not only is it okay to feel whatever you're feeling, it's actually healthy and good and is the thing that will help you move forward.
Yeah. But just like you, no one taught me how to feel feelings until I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I really had a lot of thoughts that the goal was to feel happy all the time.
Right. That's how you're winning. Yeah.
Yeah. And so negative emotions in my mind then were a big problem. And so then I would judge myself a lot for feeling negative emotions. And so instead of just allowing the initial emotion to be there and process it, then I would judge it or judge myself and then create layers of additional emotion on top of that.
Yes.
Right? that emotion. So not useful. If we could just allow the one emotion that we're actually feeling at the time without judging it, it's a whole different experience for us.
Yep. That's right. And I think with my listeners, they've dealt with some form of betrayal in their marriages, some form of infidelity, varying levels, varying degrees, but have felt a broken trust. They have felt that what I thought is not, at least in part, right? And it can be very disorienting, which is very similar to what I imagine what your clients feel. Very disorienting, I thought the world looked this way and now it looks this way. And so that process of getting your feet back on the ground to where you feel like the world's not spinning around you, right? What would you say to my listeners about that piece where there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of that disorientation, like I'm not sure what is even real. I thought it was going to be this way. What advice would you give?
Yeah. So first, I think we always need to be, again, allowing and processing whatever it is we feel. That has to be the first step. If we don't do that, we're really not going to make much progress in the other steps. So we have to do that first. But then we also have to start understanding that a lot of what's in our mind isn't going to serve the life that we want to create going forward, right? A lot of the stories that our brain is offering us about our past and what's possible in our future really aren't going to serve the future that we want to create. And so that doesn't mean we've done anything wrong. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us, but that does mean that we have an opportunity. And so we want to take advantage of that, right? Which is that we want to start looking at the stories, the thoughts that our mind is offering us objectively. Because when we can see them objectively, when we can tell, like if your mind has a story that now you can't trust anyone for the rest of your life, it will feel really real to you. And you will have a lot of evidence based on what your husband did, right? And what happened, that men are untrustworthy or you shouldn't trust or, whatever it is. Of course, the brain doing what the brain does, it searches and seeks evidence of our thinking, right? It won't show you how some people, it won't show you what you want to see unless you start actually looking for it.
Yes.
So you have to see that story first and know that it's optional. And then once you know that it's optional and you see it as a story, then you can discern, is this story one that I want to keep or one that I want to replace? Because that's what we have an option to do. And most of us, this is why I love coaching so much, most of us can't do that for ourselves because we have human brains that are busy believing stories. And we can't tell the difference between our stories and objective reality.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
But that process, if you will allow your feelings, look at your stories and see them as stories, and then decide if they're stories you want to keep or dump, right? And then replace the ones that you want to dump. That's what gets you back on track. And that's what gets you creating the future that you want instead of just repeating the same old story and repeating the same life that you have right now.
Yeah. So one of the things I talk about a lot on my podcast is building trust, lots of different angles about building trust, but something you just said, I just want to make this point that a lot of my clients, their situation is thinking that they weren't enough or their spouse wouldn't have done what they did. Okay. And then if they do decide to stay, then it's easy for their brain to find reasons to be alarmed or to be worried or looking for danger. And if they leave, then there's this concern, like you said, of, I don't know if I could ever trust again. I'm wondering with you and with some of your people, I talk about how we put a lens on and that's what we see, right?
Yes.
That's what we look for. That's what we see. That's how we filter things. And I can see how easy it would have been for you to hold Hugo as the standard. He was the golden standard and no one can ever compare to him. And so
Totally.
we can use those same lenses. We can do whatever we want with them. Like whatever we believe is what we will see. Right. So for you, you did have this wonderful relationship, and then you could use that against yourself, just like my clients sometimes use against themselves, that they don't feel like they can have a healthy relationship.
Totally.
So did you find that at all as you stepped out into the dating world? Did you find that was it easy to compare? How did you talk yourself through that?
Yeah, I think I had a much easier experience dating than I watch a lot of other people having. And I think the reason is because I did so much of my own work before I decided to start dating again. So, I spent 4 years not dating. That's not good, bad, right, wrong either. That was just, I personally wasn't even interested in dating until about that amount of time. But I had done so much of my own work and so much coaching that, yeah, I dated one person and I found one. Like, and I know that's not common. But I really was in a place where I didn't believe all of those stories. The person that I'm dating now and have been for almost a year is not a lot like Hugo. They're very, very different. Mm-hmm. And I do notice sometimes, or maybe before, not so much anymore, but yeah, there would be little stories that would pop up in my mind. But I think because I did so much work on those stories, I spot them as stories.
Right. You could catch them before they.
Yeah, before they it's like a runaway freight train. Yes. Right. Yeah, you catch them first. And also, I think I trust myself so much more than I ever have in my whole life. I trust myself now even more than I did when I was married to Hugo, because I've just done so much self-work. Yeah. And I believe that no matter what happens and no matter how I'm treated in a relationship, I will be my own champion. Mm-hmm. Right. I have nothing to fear because I create my own safety. Yep. And I can trust myself with myself. Mm-hmm. And I didn't figure that out until kind of recently. Yep. I love that so much. I love that you said that, because a lot of my listeners have that thought of, what if it happens again, right? What if I find somebody else, if they choose to leave and it happens again? And the thing that's interesting is that that's not a unique thought process. We think that it is, but hearing you and knowing the people that you work with and knowing who I am married to a widower who lost his wife, and knowing for him that sometimes that thought comes up is, what if I have to do it again? Yes. What if I have to do it again? And so it's not necessarily unique to infidelity or to loss. Our brains want to protect us from danger, right? And so if there's any possible sign of danger, we're going to try to shut ourselves down from doing the thing. Yeah. Right? And if we can see it from that perspective, we can thank our brain for trying to, keep our best interests in mind, like no pun intended, but like, yeah, okay, my brain is just really trying to keep me safe, and it associates certain things with risk. And I can appreciate that about my brain, and I don't have to take it so seriously. Yes. I could be a little more lighthearted about all of these stories and fears that float around in my mind. Yeah, I love it. And like you said, you've done the work to become your own champion. And that is where real power is, because my husband could decide today that he doesn't want to be married to me. People still die. Things happen, right? And I love what you said about knowing how, that no matter what happens, you've got you in a way that you never experienced before. And that has been my experience too. Not that it would be easy by any means to go through it all again. Not that I would want to, or of course I wouldn't want to, but I know that I can handle it. I know I would be okay. And that's power. That gives us freedom to step back out into the world, right? Yeah. 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 There's really nothing that we can't handle. And I believe there's no value in telling ourselves stories about, well, that would be too much. Like if it happened again, that would be too much. Or I see my clients doing it sometimes, having lost a spouse, they will tell themselves that if they lost a child, that would be too much, right? Or they don't want to get in another relationship because they don't want to lose it. But what's the value? There's like no upside to that story of it'll be too much. And there's really no truth in it. Right. Because humans are incredibly resilient. We're so much more resilient than we think we are. And if you look back at your life and you think about any obstacle you've had, you probably wouldn't have chosen it. But when it happened, you figured it out. Yeah. You rallied, like plot twist, and then it may have been painful and there may have been suffering, but you adjusted. Yeah. Of course, corrected, you figured it out. So why would we tell ourselves anything else? I don't know.
And we're still here plugging away despite all the plot twists, right? We're still here. Yeah.
And there have been a few. Yeah. There have been some plot twists.
Yep. Yeah. For sure. So one of the things I wanted to dive in with you, Krista, is your work around post-traumatic growth. That's something I have not specifically talked about. We talk about growth a lot, but not specifically in those words. And I'd love to hear about post-traumatic growth. Tell us how you define post-traumatic growth and how you see that play out with your clients, the people that you work with, and even yourself. I want to hear about your own growth there.
Absolutely. So post-traumatic growth to me was a surprise. I think most people are familiar with this idea of post-traumatic stress, but far fewer have ever heard the term post-traumatic growth. And that's because it just hasn't been around as long, right? So it was a phrase coined in the mid-90s by a couple of researchers, Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun. And basically they used it to describe this field of study that says trauma can actually be a springboard to greater well-being. And before this work, the best we could kind of hope for was that after something traumatic, we would just get back to that baseline that we had been experiencing before the trauma. And then these two researchers came along and started studying what actually happens to people and what is possible after trauma, which is that we can use it as a way to grow, right? We can not only bounce back, but we can bounce forward, and we can develop greater appreciation, greater meaning, greater satisfaction, greater connections, greater alignment with, spirituality and values, and become more enchanted with life, not just get back to that baseline. And so for me, it was like, wait, what? Right? That we can, and I want people to be careful too when they're hearing this, because what we don't want to say is that you have to do that. Right? It's not a moral obligation.
Right.
You don't have to grow from anything that has happened in life.
Right.
But if we want to, it's really nice to know that we have the option.
That you can.
That we can aspire to more than just getting back to the baseline of functioning, that we actually can go beyond if we want. And that's always right. And it doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you've had a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder, right?
Yep.
And even trauma is such a subjective term, because what's traumatic for one is not traumatic for another. So we really want to hold that a little bit loosely too, but we can just decide, hey, this is what's happened to me in my life, and I choose to use this as a springboard to create an even better life, to create a life that I love even more, because I can, because I'm the driver.
I love it.
This car, right?
Yeah. Yep. Beautiful. So the listeners can't see me over here shaking my head, nodding vigorously with everything that she just said. I love what you said about the concept of bouncing back versus bouncing forward. I've never heard it put that way before. And I love that, right? We all hear like bouncing back. We can, do the work and bounce back. And what if there's more?
Right.
What if there's more? I love that.
Yeah. I think grief is it is such the opportunity for us to just really stop and take stock.
Yes.
Right. Take inventory.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then what we do with that can be, it's really just unlimited.
Yep.
Right. So, for me, for one, I figured out that, no offense to my past corporate job, it was well paying and the people were lovely, but it really wasn't what I wanted to do in the world. It was paying the bills.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
It was what I thought I could do in the world, but it really wasn't what I wanted to do. And so this being able to stop and take inventory and really decide, okay, I think life is maybe shorter than I was thinking it was before.
Yep.
What do I really want to be doing with my one precious life?
Yeah.
I don't really think it has to do with business jets. No offense. Right? And then what are the relationships that we value? Do I like all the relationships I'm in? And I don't just mean the romantic ones, but right. Am I showing up as the version of myself that I want to be? I have a lot of perfectionist patterns in my life and a lot of people pleasing patterns. And we could stop right now if we want to and change those patterns. Right.
Yeah.
And there really are no limits, but something major like death of a spouse or loss of a spouse or really anything. It doesn't even have to be major, quite frankly, but anything that feels traumatic, if we want it to be, can be an opportunity.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's just the truth.
Yep. I have found the same experience that it's almost this necessary pause to stop and to evaluate and to really, like, we're meaning makers, right? We want to find meaning out of things. And I think with these experiences, like you said, that can feel very big, it's like, well, it must mean this, but if it doesn't mean this, what else could it mean? And doing that work to evaluate. And once we start doing that, we do it everywhere, right? Like, well, if it doesn't mean that, what else could that mean? And we can start doing this massive unpacking and then putting back in actually what is useful and helps us move forward.
Right. Yeah. And no pressure on doing that. And there would have been probably a time after Hugo died, if somebody had said something to me like, you can grow from your grief, right? I would have wanted to punch them in the throat.
For sure.
It's something we need to come to in our own time and do because we want to, not because we heard on some podcast that you could.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that the piece what we talked about earlier in this podcast is with grief, how letting yourself be where you are, like truly letting yourself be where you are, is the best gift you can give yourself. Not trying to hurry yourself out of it, saying, oh, I should be doing better. I could grow from this. I could be doing better. So-and-so says I can do more, right? But being where you are. And what is the power of being where you are? What do you think? Like, of allowing yourself to be there?
As you say it, what was coming to me was there's this kind of way of being where you are that is useful. And there's a way of being where you are that isn't. And when you are where you are and you own it and you don't apologize for it, but you see your role in it, right? So here's the difference. So if I'm having a quote unquote negative emotion and I'm blaming it on something outside of me, of course, I probably think negative emotions are bad, and I'm going to try to be getting away from it. But there's a difference between being in a negative emotion and blaming someone else for it compared to being in a negative emotion and owning it.
Totally.
Not that you did anything wrong because you have a negative emotion, because emotions aren't right or wrong, but so you can say, you know what, this other person or this past experience really has far less power over me than I've been thinking. I actually am feeling the way that I feel because of the story that I'm telling myself about what happened. And I may want to keep that story, I may not, but before I'm going to do any of that, I'm going to own it, right? And I'm not going to rush to change it, but I'm going to own it, because in that place, there's no rush. In that place, I'm not wrong. In that place, I'm just human. I'm allowing myself to feel what I feel. And I'm not thinking that anything outside of me has to be different, really, or anything inside of me has to be different. And I think enough time spent in that space is what allows you to own your current patterns, right? When you can see them and you can own them, but not rush to change them, there's a point at which we just kind of get this authority over them. And that point is the magic.
Yeah.
That point is we're like, well, okay, so if I'm that powerful that I've created this, what I have right now, what else could I create?
Absolutely.
And then it's like light bulbs turn on. where we start to see other people actually can just be who they are. Other like things in my past can just be what they are. And that really has like nothing to do with what happens next, how I feel next, who I become next, because I'm really like, you blow your own mind with what you've created in this moment. And that can be kind of hard, especially when you think that how you feel is another person's fault.
Yes.
Because we don't really want, it seems counterintuitive to want to believe that how we feel is caused by how we think, because we don't know how to do that without making ourselves wrong.
Right.
So that's what I kind of think. It's not just like, let me just sit in my own pity party.
Yep.
And, play in this poopy diaper and be with this feeling.
Yep.
That's not the be where you are that I think is productive. It's the let me see how I'm feeling. Let me not judge how I'm feeling. Let me own that actually I created this feeling with my thoughts and that's not a problem, because what it means is I'm so much more powerful than any wrong that I think anyone has done to me or any event from my past.
Yep. And telling yourself the truth about it.
Yes.
Yeah. Being honest with yourself. And then if you do that enough times, what I see a lot and what I've experienced myself is the more I am just aware, right? The more I just am like, yep, I totally, it's my thinking. And you know what? I'm going to hang out here. I'm going to hang out here. I know I'm creating this for myself. But then you get to this point, like you said, where it's so powerful to go, what else is possible? I wonder what it would be like to try this on instead. What would that be like?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And to know that as we do that, we're not just going to be choosing the positive stuff.
Nope.
Right. Like
nope.
I still choose to miss Hugo.
Absolutely.
Right. And I'm a coach. And sometimes I think people don't understand, well, why would you choose to feel a negative emotion? But because I feel like it's appropriate. I like missing him. I don't want to not miss him. You could still choose to be angry. You can choose to have a feeling, right?
Yeah.
It's not about, I'm trying to get away from the negative and only have the positive. If we really want, the depth of the emotional human experience, we want to have the low lows and the high highs, but owning them is the key.
Yep. Beautiful. So in the last few minutes here, you touched on something that I would love to dive into a little bit. You talked about, how did you say it? You talked about our framing of past events and the stories that we tell about it. And I want to talk about regret. Because I imagine it's something that you hear from your people. And it's something I hear as well. And it's something that I've grappled with. For sure. It's something that I have worked through on my own, where for you, their spouses are gone. There are conversations they will not be able to have face to face with them, right? For many of my clients, they can see, especially as their awareness grows, they can see where they maybe would have done some things differently in their marriage, and they might experience some regret. So tell me how you help your people through regret. What would you say to that?
Yeah. Can I speak first to the difference between guilt and regret?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yes. Because I see that a lot too, so guilt is when we did something and at the time we knew it wasn't aligned with our values, right? But we still did it on purpose. Regret is when we look back in time and with hindsight, we have new data. And if we could get a do-over, we would do it differently. So I notice a lot of confusion there, where people are telling themselves they feel guilty, when really at the time they were doing the best job they could with what they knew. They were acting in accordance with their values. And so I hope to clear that up. First of all, there is such a difference between guilt and regret. But then with regret, I think we want to look at it from a lens of usefulness. So yes, many of us look back and we think, wow, if I had known then what I know now, I would have done it differently. And sometimes I think there can be value in that. Sometimes there can be a lesson there that we can take and apply to the future. So if we can go back at that situation that we now have new data around and look at how could we have done it differently, even with that same data, because maybe there's just a lesson here that we can take. And if we give ourselves time to explore it, then we can apply it going forward and it can actually be beneficial. I'm all in favor of that. What I don't love is when we use hindsight to beat ourselves up, right? When we use hindsight to solidify a terrible belief about ourselves. There's something wrong with us. We always do it wrong. We should have done it wrong. We're not good enough, blah, blah, blah. So let's not use it as a weapon. That's what I suggest, right? Is it useful? If there's something useful in there, let's find it. Let's apply it to the future. Let's take it forward as a lesson learned. If it's just something that, we're weaponizing, that's going to hold us back, that's going to create less of what we want, solidify a belief that doesn't serve us going forward, there's no value there. It's not useful.
Perfect. I love thinking it as kind of collecting data points. Yeah. Like now I have this information and I can apply it to where I'm going.
Right. Which really is the iterative cycle of life, right? Iterative. So, you make a plan, you do something, you get some data and you adjust. That's the whole, my manufacturing background. That's what you learn, right? Is you just troubleshoot in a manufacturing environment with that cycle. You plan, you do, you check, you act. It should be the same way with life. We make a plan, we do something, we check our results, and then we act.
I love that.
And we tweak what worked, what didn't, and we just keep going. But what happens is, like, I think with regret, sometimes we just stay stuck. We aren't actually moving forward or taking any lesson learned. We're just like hyper focused on this one part of life that we wish we could do differently, which really doesn't serve us in the present moment. And it absolutely holds us back from creating what we want in the future. So can we just, iterate faster and take the lesson or not?
Yep. Perfect.
But keep going.
Thank you so much. That's perfect. So to wrap up, do you have any last words of wisdom for my people that you'd love them to know?
Yeah, I think your brain is so much more powerful than you know. And so whenever, you're thinking about what's possible for your future, I think it's completely normal to not exactly know what you want or believe it's possible. But if you can just leverage that so much more is possible for you than your brain is currently letting you see, and keep leaning into that, right? Just keep leaning into that, because we tend to underestimate what is possible for us in the future, especially after an event that we didn't want. And it's normal, but we can get beyond it. And so just to kind of have hope that maybe you don't see it right now, but just keep leaning in and just keep asking, like, what if I could love my life again? What would it look like? And it can be even the smallest of things, but just keep asking that question and keep leaning in to what it could be in the future, instead of just resigning yourself to the new normal that you really don't want.
Yep. So beautiful. Thank you so much. So if my listeners want to learn more from you, where would they be able to find you?
Sure. They can find me. My podcast is called the Widowed Mom Podcast. And, mostly it's grief, right? Yeah. So they can find me there. They can find me at coachingwithkrista.com, and it's Krista. And on Facebook, I am Coaching with Krista. On Instagram, I am Life Coach Krista. So love to connect anywhere.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful to hear from you. You're just so wise and articulate, and I love the way that you explain things. I know that my listeners are going to love this episode. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Totally my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Heal from Infidelity podcast. If you would like to be kept in the know about upcoming free classes, new podcast episodes, and other ways of working with me, go subscribe to my weekly email. You can subscribe at AndreaGiles.com/lies-about-infidelity/. Again, it's AndreaGiles.com/lies-about-infidelity/. I will see you next time.